Imagine two strangers are placed in a room together and told, "You're going to be housemates. Say hello." Now imagine instead that those two strangers are walked side by side down a street at a comfortable distance for 20 minutes. No forced eye contact, no pressure to interact, just parallel movement in the same direction. Which situation is more likely to produce a calm, cooperative relationship? You already know the answer. And dogs know it even better than we do. Parallel walking is the gold standard introduction protocol for bringing a new dog into a home with an existing dog, and it works because it's ethologically validated. It mimics the natural way dogs in the wild reduce conflict and establish non-threatening proximity. Here's the mechanics. Walk both dogs in the same direction, at least 6 to 10 feet apart, with one handler per dog. Use loose leashes. Tension travels down the leash and into the dog's nervous system. Keep moving. Don't stop and force them to interact. After 10 to 15 minutes of parallel walking at distance, gradually reduce the gap. Let them glance at each other. Let them sniff the ground where the other dog walked. Keep the movement going. Why does this work? Because direct, face-to-face greeting, standing still and staring, is a threat signal in canine communication. It creates forward spatial pressure, forces direct eye contact, and eliminates the dog's ability to use distance as a coping mechanism. Parallel movement removes all of that. It allows safe olfactory investigation, the primary way dogs actually gather social information, without the pressure of direct confrontation. Once both dogs are walking comfortably at close range, you can allow brief, curved approach sniffing, nose to tail, not nose to nose, before moving on again. Keep the first meeting short. End on calm, neutral behavior. Let them have many short positive encounters before their first full shared space experience. The moment your dog steps through your front door, a full-scale physiological alarm system fires. This isn't metaphor. This is hard science. Your dog's sympathetic nervous system, the ancient fight-or-flight command center, activates instantly. Simultaneously, the HPA axis, which controls the hormonal stress response, floods the bloodstream with two powerful chemicals, adrenaline and cortisol. Adrenaline sharpens the senses. Heart rate spikes. Muscles tense. Every sound is a potential threat. Every unfamiliar smell is processed as possible danger. Cortisol does something more complex. In the short term, it's a survival tool. It keeps the nervous system on high alert, suppresses appetite, and redirects energy away from digestion and rest toward vigilance and escape readiness. That's why your new dog isn't eating. That's why he won't settle. That's why he seems to want nothing to do with you. He isn't ungrateful. He isn't broken. His ancient mammalian brain has simply registered one overwhelming message: unknown territory, unknown pack, potential danger. Stay alert. Here's what this means for you. The first 72 hours are not about bonding. They're not about training. They're not about showing your dog how great his new life is going to be. The first 72 hours are a neurological stabilization window, a transient physiological phase where your only job is to reduce the noise, lower the cortisol load, and give your dog's nervous system permission to downshift from threat response into safety. The dogs that struggle most in new homes are not the ones with behavioral problems. They're the ones whose new owners, with the absolute best intentions, overwhelm them in the first 72 hours with too much stimulation, too many strangers, and too much forced affection. Less is more. Silence is kindness. Patience is the most powerful first training tool you have. You've probably heard that dogs settle in within a few days. Maybe someone told you, give it 3 days and he'll be fine. That's not wrong, but it's dangerously incomplete. Here's what canine welfare research actually shows. In the first 2 to 3 days, cortisol levels spike sharply, often to their highest point. This is the acute stress peak. This is when your dog is most likely to refuse food, avoid eye contact, hide, pace, or whimper through the night. But for many dogs, especially those coming from shelters, difficult backgrounds, or multiple previous rehomings, cortisol doesn't normalize in 3 days. Studies show that some dogs take 10 to 12 days just to return to a measurable baseline. And full behavioral homeostasis, the state where a dog is genuinely calm, emotionally regulated, and able to learn, can take several weeks or even months. This is why the popular 3-3-3 rule you've seen all over social media, 3 days to decompress, 3 weeks to learn routines, 3 months to feel at home, isn't actually peer-reviewed laboratory science. It's an experiential framework built from years of rescue and rehoming work. And it's still useful because its underlying principle is solid. Step-by-step environmental exposure, combined with neurological stabilization, is how dogs decompress. The science supports that structure, even if the exact numbers are flexible depending on the individual dog. What does this mean practically? Stop expecting your dog to be himself in the first week. Stop measuring progress in days. The dog you're going to love is still buried under a mountain of cortisol, and your job is to help him dig his way out, slowly, without adding more weight. So what does good decompression look like in real life? First, create a small, quiet sanctuary. Don't give your new dog free run of the entire house immediately. Pick one room, quiet, low traffic, with his bed, water, and a few safe items, and let that be his world for the first few days. Too much space too soon is cognitively overwhelming for a dog already in a high cortisol state. Think of it this way. When you're overwhelmed, do you want to explore a massive unfamiliar city, or do you want a quiet room and a cup of tea? Second, resist the urge to introduce everyone at once. Your kids are excited. Your relatives want to meet him. Your neighbors are already asking when they can visit. The answer for the first several days is not yet. Every new person is a new stressor. Every new face triggers a new threat assessment from your dog's nervous system. The more people, the more cortisol. The more cortisol, the longer the decompression takes. 1 or 2 calm, quiet humans are enough for the first week. Introductions to others can come gradually as your dog's behavior starts to show signs of relaxation, loose body, soft eyes, voluntary approach, appetite returning. Third, let him come to you. This is the hardest instruction for loving new dog owners to follow, but it may be the most important one. Do not force cuddles. Do not carry him to meet new things. Do not lure him out of his hiding spot to show him the world is safe. Sit on the floor near him. Read a book. Watch television. Let him observe you without pressure. Let him make the first approach on his own timeline. Every voluntary approach your dog makes, every time he chooses to sniff you, move closer, or accept a treat from your hand, is a small neurological victory. It tells his nervous system, I moved toward that thing and nothing bad happened. Maybe it's safe. Forced interaction can't create that learning. Only choice can. Imagine 2 strangers are placed in a room together and told, you're going to be housemates. Say hello. Now imagine instead that those 2 strangers are walked side by side down a street at a comfortable distance for 20 minutes. No forced eye contact, no pressure to interact, just parallel movement in the same direction. Which situation is more likely to produce a calm, cooperative relationship? You already know the answer. And dogs know it even better than we do. Parallel walking is the gold standard introduction protocol for bringing a new dog into a home with an existing dog, and it works because it's ethologically validated. It mimics the natural way dogs in the wild reduce conflict and establish non-threatening proximity. Here's the mechanics. Walk both dogs in the same direction, at least 6 to 10 feet apart, with 1 handler per dog. Use loose leashes. Tension travels down the leash and into the dog's nervous system. Keep moving. Don't stop and force them to interact. After 10 to 15 minutes of parallel walking at distance, gradually reduce the gap. Let them glance at each other. Let them sniff the ground where the other dog walked. Keep the movement going. Why does this work? Because direct, face-to-face greeting, standing still and staring, is a threat signal in canine communication. It creates forward spatial pressure, forces direct eye contact, and eliminates the dog's ability to use distance as a coping mechanism. Parallel movement removes all of that. It allows safe olfactory investigation, the primary way dogs actually gather social information, without the pressure of direct confrontation. Once both dogs are walking comfortably at close range, you can allow brief, curved approach sniffing, nose to tail, not nose to nose, before moving on again. Keep the first meeting short. End on calm, neutral behavior. Let them have many short positive encounters before their first full shared space experience. Here is the bite risk no one talks about clearly enough. Most dog bites in multi-dog or dog-child households happen not because the dog is aggressive, but because the humans around the dog missed the warning signs or created the conditions that made conflict inevitable. Let's talk about resource guarding first. Resource guarding, growling, stiffening, or snapping near food, toys, or resting spots is not dominance. It's not bad character. It is a classical operant and emotional survival tactic that has served canids for thousands of years. When a dog guards a resource, he's communicating one clear message: I'm worried this will be taken from me. The most dangerous mistake you can make is punishing that communication. Here's why. The growl is the warning. The growl is the signal that gives you time to respond safely. When you punish growling through scolding, leash corrections, or physical reprimand, you don't reduce the underlying anxiety. You suppress the warning signal. The dog learns growling doesn't work. So the next time the anxiety spikes, he skips the warning and goes directly to the bite. The solution is counterconditioning. This is not a soft, feel-good concept. This is gold standard behavior science rooted in classical conditioning, the same principles Pavlov proved over a century ago. When another dog or a person approaches the resource guarder's food bowl, something extraordinary should appear. An extremely high-value treat, real chicken, real cheese, something the dog almost never gets. The approaching presence becomes the predictor of something wonderful. Over many repetitions, the dog's amygdala, the emotional processing center, recodes the automatic threat response. The association shifts from someone coming near my food equals danger to someone coming near my food equals incredible things happen. This is not magic. This is neuroscience applied to behavior change. Now, children and new dogs. The non-negotiable rule is this: every dog-child interaction must be supervised, and the dog must always have a clear, unblocked escape route. Children naturally move fast, reach toward faces, make loud sounds, and invade personal space, all of which are, in canine language, threat behaviors. A dog who feels cornered, restrained, or unable to escape from an overwhelming child is a dog who may bite, not out of aggression, but out of desperation. Give your dog agency. Give him exits. Never force him to accept handling or interaction. A dog who voluntarily approaches a child is infinitely safer than a dog who is held in place while a child reaches for him. Watch his body language: lip licking, yawning, looking away, stiff posture, whale eye, showing the whites of the eyes. These are stress signals. Honor them before they escalate. Here's the final piece, and it might be the most underestimated one. Once the acute stress phase passes, once cortisol begins to stabilize, once your dog starts showing you glimpses of who he actually is, the thing that will carry him the rest of the way to full emotional security is not a training technique. It's not a special supplement. It's not a behavioral intervention. It's predictability. Structured daily routine, consistent feeding times, consistent walk times, consistent sleep rhythms is one of the most highly effective tools in managing a dog's allostatic load, the cumulative wear and tear of chronic stress on the body and brain. Here's the biology. Dogs, like all mammals, have circadian rhythms, internal biological clocks that regulate cortisol production, digestion, sleep architecture, and emotional regulation. When those rhythms are anchored to consistent daily events, food happens at 7 a.m., walk happens at 8 a.m., quiet time happens at noon, the cortisol depletion cycle accelerates. The nervous system learns, this world is predictable. Predictable means safe. Safe means I can rest. A dog who can rest fully is a dog who can learn. A dog who can learn is a dog who can bond. And a dog who can bond is the dog you imagined when you drove to the shelter or the breeder and said, this is my dog. Conclusion. What your dog needs you to know. Hook, emotional close. You chose this dog. Maybe you saved him from a shelter. Maybe you drove hours to pick him up. Maybe you've wanted this exact dog your entire life. And right now, he's hiding behind your couch, refusing your treats, and looking at you like you're a stranger. You're a stranger.
For now.
But the nervous system that is flooding his body with cortisol right now is the same nervous system that will, in a few weeks, recognize your footstep on the stairs and begin to wag before you've even opened the door. The brain that is mapping your home as unknown territory right now is the same brain that will, in a few months, rest its chin on your knee like it has always belonged there. Give him the 72-hour neurological window he needs. Honor the cortisol timeline. Walk in parallel. Countercondition with patience. Build the routine. The dog you're going to love is already there. He just needs time to find his way to you.